Thanks. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Andy Edwards. It's Andy Edwards, isn't it, to you for the next hour. And he's a behavioural psychologist, and he's also a coach, and he's written lots of books, and he does regular speeches at conferences. I'm beefing you up here, Andy.
Yeah, the pressure.
But, I did say, how shall I introduce you? And he said, well, just let me do it. So I'm going to pass you over.
Thanks very much. Behavioural psychologist is probably over-egging the pudding, although I probably said that. I'm actually specifically qualified in a particular branch of psychology called psychometrics, and it's all about different types of people. Some of you will have done sort of Myers-Briggs and that sort of thing. Anybody done Myers-Briggs? Yeah? Yeah? Do you remember what your 4 letters were? No, me neither. Yeah. A lot of what I'm going to talk about this afternoon, good Lord, is actually you. The people sitting in front of me. I've been here for pretty much all of the conference so far, and I'm pretty impressed. I'm from the other side, called the customer, or do you call that the patient? I'm not sure how. Oh, the patient, is it? Okay. Perhaps I'm not the reason you get paid then. But I am subject to what it is that you do. And it's very interesting listening to some of the issues and talking about some of the issues that you have and how incredibly similar they are to pretty much every other organisation that I speak to. Now, you might call them a few different things. I've already hit on one, the patient and the customer thing, and you talk about your various management, all your TLAs, I think you referred to them as earlier on, TLAs, 3-letter acronyms, yeah, you know that. You just call this stuff by a different name. But there are an incredible number of parallels out there. You know, we're sort of, when we talk about everybody in this together, the big society, or whatever you want to refer to it as, we are. Whether it's in a manufacturing company I'm speaking to, in Devizes, or a solicitor's firm up in Scotland, or indeed the British Embassy over in the United Arab Emirates, which I've just come back from. It's 34 in the shade at the moment. I just thought I'd let you know that. I wasn't in the shade, by the way. So the word is not boringly similar. It's just incredibly similar. I don't know whether I was expecting it to be different, but I suppose all I can give you from my point of view is A, I'm from this side of the fence, and B, I come across a lot of other organisations that are going through not dissimilar things that you're going through. I don't know whether you take solace from that. I'd understand if you didn't. But we're all in this together. There's a lot going on out there. Specifically change, specifically culture, when it comes down to those two things, we have to start talking about who we are within those roles. Somebody was saying earlier on, so we need to understand about stress management and how to manage change. You say, well, you don't sort of manage change, because if you could manage change, then we would tell them not to do that. We sort of can't manage it. We can manage ourselves within the change, but sort of more of that later. Just to let you know, this is me, Andy Edwards. I do this for a living. There was a survey done in the 1990s, actually, for a newspaper. It was the New York Times. And that survey asked their readership, it said, what is your biggest fear? What's the biggest worry you have? And back came their answers in their many, many thousands. And they collated the answers. And death came third. Death actually came third, yeah. Preferred to die than 2 other things. One of the other things was standing up in front of people speaking. The other thing, by the way, was walking into a room full of people you don't know. I do both for my living, so I've got a job that's a fate worse than death a lot of the time. So bear with me, especially in as much as we call this the graveyard slot. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, cheers, thanks for that. On that note, and just to sort of complete a little bit about me, the company that I refer to, the one that I've got, is called 953. And for those of you who don't know my organisation or some of the things I get up to, will not know what 953 particularly signifies. I'll tell you now, at the time when I decided to call my company something, I couldn't have the company called pretty much everything limited. So I thought, no, I've got to be a bit more sort of fly than that. At the time, which was about the year 2003, 2004, when I changed the name from something else, I had a look on the World Health Organization website, and at that time, it's probably changed a little bit now, but at that time, 953 is the average number of months you can expect to be alive. And they call me a motivational speaker. Yeah. 953. I've had 500 597 of those. And that dates me, doesn't it? Yeah. Wow. So really, whatever's important to you has got to happen between, 2:05 today. Whatever's important to you, and I'm talking about the whole of your life here, the relationships you seek to have or maintain or to forage for, whatever those things are, the money you're going to bring in, the holidays you're going to go on, the changes you're going to make to your business practice, it's all got to happen between 2:05 today. And whenever that time is where it doesn't matter anymore, and there will come that time, by the way. And our best guess is the averages from the World Health Organization, 953 months. Anybody sitting there thinking, I've had about 700 of those. The wonderful way averages works is if you're reasonably healthy and you've survived this far, or thus far, you've already slewn some odds in your favor. So the likelihood is you'll live a bit longer. But if this were the case, if this were the average, and it's suggested that it is, then half of this room is going to live longer than the other half. Well, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? Which half would you like to be in? One half is going to be happier than the other half. Which half would you like? This is where we get averages from. So 953, it's supposed to be a little bit of, well, if it's important to you, let's get on with it. And whatever you've heard this morning, whatever you're going to hear this afternoon, it's called personal development. It's called learning. And learning is pointless, and it's worthless, and it is useless. Comma, because it's my livelihood. Comma, until you go and do something about what you've learned. So really, make sure that when you leave here, you take with you a couple of things you're specifically going to do, and I think that's going to be facilitated a little bit later in terms of the things you can take forward, specifically within your realm of responsibility and actionable points. Otherwise, it's been a pleasant afternoon. Full stop. And by the way, go do something within 72 hours, or don't kid yourself you're going to. Maybe that's a bit of a challenge for you. So this is what I do for a living up there. What was this? Oh, yeah, the HBA. Yeah, it was good fun. I do this, as I've said, all over the world. This was Dubai a few years ago now. I can tell because I used to dye my hair. A while ago. But I call myself an educator for a particular reason. Educator not as in the teacher sense of the word, not as in mainstream education. Don't get me on that. Educator, and some of you will know this by virtue of your classical education, or not. The educator, many of our words from the English language come from Latin derivatives, and this Latin derivative is educare. And those of you who did do Latin at school will obviously know, or perhaps have forgotten, that educare doesn't mean tell people stuff, put stuff in. It actually means to draw stuff out, to lead out, to draw out, that which you probably already know. So largely, I'm going to tell you stuff about yourself that you already know. But, and here's the issue, it might be stuff you've forgotten. It might be stuff you're not currently using. It might be stuff worth remembering. I can't be your specific business consultant today. I'd love to. I can't. Leave that to other people. But what I can do is touch on some issues that you might say, you know what, Andy, the cap sort of fits on me with that one. And just to open yourself up to the possibility of some of the things I'm saying do not need to be followed by, yes, but. Perhaps they can be followed by, oh, yes, and. There will always be a reason not to. And yet, when we look at the fly bashing its head against the window to get out, because everything that in that fly's world, in that fly's awareness and knowledge, that poor insect can look through that and say, well, there's outside, I'm going for it. And you see them bashing their heads against, effectively, a brick wall, which they cannot understand is there. And you say, don't do that. They said, no, but this is the way out. No, it's not sort of not working. And they say, but this is the way out. Ah, yes, but this is the way out. And they'll die on the windowsill. I've seen them have to sweep them up occasionally. I know this. What if that fly just decided to take a beat? And you see them occasionally flying around the middle. They're having a think. I don't know if you know that. They're having a think. Little fly brains. And they're going, it's not working. It's not working. What could work? Well, here's the answer. Something else. Try something else. Whoop. Try something else, Mr. Fly. And with a little bit of thought, a little bit of time invested, we'll come back to that, they notice that the door is ajar. And with 1/billionth of the effort, they escape the room. Just by taking a step back. That's sort of the material I'm going to talk to. By the way, you don't have to do anything about this stuff. But those of you who do will find that they can potentially make a difference. So with that caveat in mind, let's have a look. We're all in this together was my suggestion about Great Britain Public Limited Company, actually. Everybody is in it together, but as are you. More specifically, you're all in it together. It's been suggested that I talk to you a little bit about change, how change specifically affects us, and then perhaps why culture is important. And we want to understand what culture is. Often we hear organizational culture, it's a culture. What does that mean? And how do you affect that? Well, let's have a look at some of the principal elements to some of this stuff, and the fact that behavior is important. And by the way, let me just check. Yeah, you're all doing it now. Any idea what I'm talking about? Yeah. You're all behaving. Yeah, if you weren't, you'd be dead, which is why I checked, by the way. But you're all doing so. You're behaving, and as I bring your conscious awareness to what you are doing, whether or not you're scratching your eye or reading your newspaper or whatever it is that you're doing right now is your behavior given this set of stimuli at this point in time with your comfort zone where you are right now. In other words, you're doing what you would do under these circumstances. Of course you are. Unconsciously, that's what we do pretty much all the time. The role of behavior in this context is interesting and different. This is, what do you consciously do? If you all drive cars, then I don't know how long ago it was, a fair while ago for me, it was mirror, signal, maneuver. I don't know. What's that about? It's now, I don't know. It's just me, perhaps. When I see an orange light, an amber light, what do? Speed up. Slow down. Oh, okay. You see, all of us have built up ways of doing things that get us through the day. And most of that is now on a subconscious level. If I chucked an advanced driving instructor right next to you as you drive home this evening, there would be a difference in your behavior. You would be very consciously aware of how you drive. And you'd be going, oh, I shouldn't have done that, I have to apologise. And the bloke who cuts you up in the white van, it wouldn't so much get the, all that sort of stuff. It would be, oh, he must be in a hurry, it's okay. Changes of behavior. Why? Because somebody's checking you out. Somebody's monitoring you. Well, you can be your monitor. You can be your own advanced driving instructor. With this material, bring to consciousness what it is that you do and work out whether it still works. Whether you want to carry on doing it, and by the way, you can, or whether you want to do something different, which might serve you better. So we'll look at the role of behavior. We'll talk about attitude in terms of what I call it the multiplier. Whatever else you do, multiply by attitude is what happens. So we'll look at attitude in both its glorious forms, and then we'll end up with what I refer to as a couple of golden rules. Again, we've been looking at collating some of the issues, the key issues that you were putting back on the back of the wall earlier on. And a lot of the internal issues we're going to be sort of touching on today because, again, they're not hugely different to the issues that I see replicated in many different industries, professions, trades, and industries. So look at some of the golden rules that I think could apply across everything. So all change again, for goodness sake. Is that a problem? Well, is it? All change. Well, look at her. She looks a bit upset about it all. And the word again, it could be construed that the only guaranteed thing, pretty much from this point onwards, if not as of a while ago, the only guaranteed thing we're going to have, the only thing we know is going to happen is going to be change. Everything that you do will change. And will change again and again and again. So it's almost one of those things you say, well, okay, at what point do I stop moaning about it? By the way, never stop moaning. It's always useful to have a moan. It's just good for the psychology. But at what point do we say, well, this is normal. This is business as usual. It's not going to change. There will be fluctuations in terms of how you feel about it, but nothing's going to change. And the suggestion here, of course, is that change isn't the problem. We change very happily all the time, as my underpants today will testify. Sorry, that was a bit crude. They're different than they were yesterday. Here's hoping. Because I chose it. Change is not the problem, but imposed change might be. And I heard a lot this morning about we haven't been asked, we haven't been talked about, haven't been consulted, and that will happen. And there will be opportunities when you are consulted, when you can have a moan, when you can bring your points to bear. But that will be normal. Change is the problem. Impose changes. And we all know about the standard change cycle, the grief cycle, starting off with, what am I losing by virtue of this change? All the way through to, well, perhaps I can accept it. And I can commit to the change, albeit with perhaps a lick and a prayer and a hope and a promise. But there's lots of stages between that, and you will be, depending on the change that happens to you and how it affects you, because you're all different. It doesn't matter where you are in that, it's okay. But know that it's okay. You might be feeling any of this: denial, disconnect, anxiety, sadness, passiveness, shock, disbelief. That's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. That's how the 2 million years of genetic programming has seen us through to this day. So don't worry about the fact that you're feeling perhaps negative or worried or upset or whatever those things. The question would be is what's next for you? It's a phase you're going through. What's the next phase would be my suggestion. You see, if change from a corporate point of view needs vision and it needs skills in order for the change. Again, some of the stuff we've been talking about was, are people literally skilled enough to cope with the change? What about the incentive? What's in it for me to change? Why should I bother? And what about the feedback having changed? And what about the action plan? If those things aren't in place, I would suggest that change is going to either founder or be painful or a bit of both. If you've got all the others in place except one, we have a word that we would use. So I would ask you now, just to consider, what would change feel like, be like, without the vision? If vision was there, but everything else was okay, but there was no vision, then there would be something missing. And as we go through the negative words you're about to see, where are you in that? So you can perhaps understand what you need to put in place in order to fix it. So without vision, my suggestion would be we get confusion. By the way, you might be a number of these different things. There's confusion without vision. Perhaps the vision's not available yet. In that case, you're okay where you are. Everybody's confused. I heard that this morning. What about change without the skills in place? Anxiety, worry. Can we do this? I don't know. And whose fault is it that somebody hasn't got the skills? Well, whoever's resourcing that. Sometimes that's us, resourcing them. Perhaps they're anxious. And what about what's in it for me? So you change without incentive, you're going to get resistance. Why would I bother? It's not worth it, is it? Nah, I'm not going to bother. And what about change without feedback? And by the way, that doesn't have to be necessarily positive. Well done, you're doing brilliantly. It's, hey, here's what you need to do differently. But without feedback, what have you got? Frustration. Well, where am I in this? I've gone down this path that I think is okay, but nobody's telling me it is. It might be a question of all of these guys. And what about change without an action plan? And a wonderful question this morning, 10 years, 10 years, 10 days in terms of where we're going. Well, in that case, make it a 10-day strategy. Why not? Without an action plan, it's a treadmill. Same again, same again, same again, same again. So where are you in change? Change is going to happen. Change has got a cycle. It's cyclical. It will be cyclical by virtue of its cycle, because there'll be another cycle of cycles again. It's normal. It's going to happen. Where are you in it? What's your feelings towards change? But if you get all five present, if you get the vision, if you get the skills, people are able to do this. If you've got incentive, there's a reason for it to happen. And some of those are directly impacting on you. If you get feedback from the change, if you get an action plan, you know where you're doing, you know where you're going, all that good stuff, you probably get positive change, because we would have all of those things in place when we decide to change. In the training version of this, we pull this apart. Think of a change that you actually are comfortable with, that you have put in place yourself, and you'll probably find that all of that's in place. Where is it missing? Delighted to see a couple of you jotting things down. It's way different people learn in different ways. These slides, by the way, will be made electronically available from a website or something or other, so you don't have to necessarily write down what you're seeing here. I'm happy for you to write down what you're going to do about what you see, of course, or just sit there in awe. I don't mind. It works either way. We do, obviously, when we're talking about change, say, well, is it a culture of change? Well, if it's going to happen all the time, then it is culture. You've only got to look at, you can only walk into a shop, a factory, an office, an organization where there are a number of people, even a family, to understand a lot about culture. The culture word is defined, from my point of view, as that. The way things are done around here. And that is made up of so many different things. Almost sort of given things. Remember the unconscious things. The culture of you as a driver is made up of many, many different learned behaviors. Accepted things, speeding up at the lights, it's okay, hasn't crashed yet, be all right. Beeping the horn when the white van pulls out in front of you, you know. All those things that built up for me, the way I drive. It's my culture of driving. I can tell it, as you can you, by the way, you can tell the culture of an organization or of a family, of a group of people, just by being with them for a few moments, let alone a few months or weeks or few years. If, by the way, you are part of that, then how easy is it for us to forget our part in that culture and how we contribute to that culture? And if the culture of our organization is something that we don't want or don't like, recognize the power that we have vested in us to do something about that. Perhaps not suddenly, but certainly gradually. Who wins out of the stone and the water? Well, the water, eventually. Just keep going. So culture is an important part of what we're doing. To me, it's the personality of an organization or of a business, made up, as I've suggested, of many different things. The suggestions on the left there are things like the rules. What are the rules of your organization? The customs, the dress code, tolerances. I was talking to quite a large, well, it was a banking organization, and I said, would anybody steal from the bank? And everybody went, steal? No, it's illegal. We're not allowed to steal. And I said, so you wouldn't sort of take anything from the stationery cupboard, like paper clips? Oh, paper clips are all right. No, that's okay. Bits of paper, yeah, reams of paper occasionally. That's fine. It's stealing, actually. It's not yours. I think they probably thought embezzlement of funds. But what's accepted? What's accepted within the organization? What are the tolerances, the standards, the history, what's gone on before, closely linked to the folklore, the expectations you have of each other, upwards, downwards, and across. And certainly in terms of your behavior, your values. Quite often corporations decide on a set of values, and they are superimposed by the people above that everybody's got to live by. Does anybody have published values within their organization? This is what we're going to sort of be like. They're quite a useful focuser. Values of the organization, because it will, from the values, you say, well, if we're going to commit to being like this, then what does that look like? And it has to look like behavior and the things that you say and the way you say things and the culture. Values is a good place to start. So if we're talking about culture being made up of me and you and you and you and you, in other words, the collective individuals, i.e. us, then we're very much part of an organizational culture. Organizational culture, I'm not talking about much bigger than that. The extent to which you do anything about the culture is the extent to which you like it or don't like it, want to change it. Bring it to consciousness. What could you do differently? What is there within the culture that you like? Has this been defined? Does everybody else not like the same thing that you don't like? Because culture can be changed through this. Behavior is one of the most important things out, because until you stop breathing and drop your mortal coil, you are behaving. And if you are behaving, you are communicating. You cannot not communicate by virtue of your behavior. So everybody here is communicating right here, right now with everybody else at that wonderfully huge and expansive and subconscious level. You're telling me stuff now. The truth will out. And your personality style, who you truly are, is leaking from you as we speak. And I'm not going to pick on anybody specific yet. I'm not going to pick on anybody specific, but just to know that, just catch yourself into, suddenly you're starting to move in a slightly different way because I'm starting to notice what you're doing. And by the way, you'll have done the same with me. You'll have got a sense of who I am, and subconsciously, perhaps a little bit consciously, but most of it takes place unconsciously, and decided exactly the sort of person you think I am. The guy at the front that sounds a little bit like Michael McIntyre, looks a bit like Jim Carrey, I don't know, all that good stuff. But people tell me afterwards. You'll have done it already, because behavior leaks tells you stuff. Whether or not it's true, whether or not you're interpreting it correctly is interesting. So I don't want to pick up on anybody specifically in terms of their behavior, but I would invite you to all do the same piece of behavior, which is that. Everybody fold their arms. You don't have to make the face, although I see some of you are, that's fine. Unbelievable. So we've got our arms folded. If you look along the line, you might notice that some people, like Duncan, have got their right arm over their left. Other people, like Annette, have got their left arm over their right. Some people, like Sam here, have got both fingers visible, giving herself a little self-hug, which is quite nice. Other people are tucked in, and you can't see either of their fingers. It's just gone. So I'm now sort of pulling apart the constituent elements of folding one's arms. How did you decide to fold your arms in that way, and why? Doesn't matter. It's your, big word here, preference. It's your preference. This is how you do it. The culture of folding your arms, the way I fold my arms is that. That's the way I do it. So, in acceptance and deference to the fact there is, in fact, another way of doing this, Why not, right now, try and fold your arms in the diametrically opposite way to that which you've just done? Oh, there's a lot of people doing the okey cokey. Have you been able to do it, is the question. I've just heard from Alison saying it's very uncomfortable. Sam's just said something unrepeatable. Mandy's saying the other people must be sick, twisted, and wrong. There's lots of negativity about how the other person... By all means, relax, because it does feel generally reported to be uncomfortable and strange and a bit icky, really. And here's the interesting point about this illustration. You do it your way, they do it theirs. When you try and do it their way, when you try and do it like them, you've got to put a lot of thought into it. Left, right, what does he mean? Left, right? Okay, right. All fingers pointing. You have to, if I had you on one of those machines that do the brain waves, what is it? This one. One of them, yeah. When I asked you to fold your arms, it would have gone dink, because that's no problem. Would have taken a lot of effort from a brain pattern point of view. And then say, now do it like somebody else, do it the opposite way. This thing would have lit up like a Christmas tree. New neural pathways trying to be formed. Oh, my word. And the effort that you put into that is tangible. The oxygen that your brain is burning through in order to work that hard to get to a position that you didn't like anyway. Why would you bother trying to do it like somebody else? Because A, it's hard to even envisage, to even begin the process. And then B, once you do get there, and it takes a while before you're doing a lot of work to get there, you don't like it when you're there, so why the heck would we bother? That's the point. We tend not to bother, because we are we. They're they. They're the sick, twisted, and wrong ones. We do it right. They're straight and wrong, aren't they, the other ones? The ones that do it different. No, they don't do it so much wrongly, they just do it differently. It's still folding their arms. And it's very easy to see that in manifestation. You can say, left arm over your right. I was able to point that out. The way the other one is when you clasp your hands together with one set of fingers on top of the other one. Can you do that with one thumb on top of the other one? Yeah. And of course, all the intelligent people have the left thumb on top. Is that right? Yeah. What do you mean? And the way you change it, is to move everything up one so that the thumb is now on top. You see, to me, now the opposite, it just feels lopsided. It just feels strange. Why? Because it's my preference. There are many things we do. There are many things. And when I say many things, I mean many things that we do from a physical point of view that are different to how somebody else might do it. I guarantee you. That's not the problem. We tend to see those differences. We see the differences between one person wearing a tie and another person not. I was going to talk about moustaches, but a lot of guys have got them. I'm not so much sure. I didn't either. The Movember thing going on. So we manifest ourselves in very particularly different ways, which are visible, and we tend to accept them straight away. That's not so much what I'm talking about, although they are preferences. What I'm talking about is behavioural preferences. The differences, I suppose, that take place between your ears, on a mental or that sort of plane. What I'd like you to do, actually, just take one of those and hand them back. Just take one of those. Don't open them yet. Just take one of those envelopes, hand it back. Don't open it yet. Only one of them has a P45 in it. You're all right. So I sort of, actually, could I put it there? Can you just take one and hand them forward? And when they meet in the middle, just save them because I don't want to lose them. So if we're talking about the way we do things, if we're talking about behavior being a manifestation of who we are between our ears, then we need to understand a little bit about behavioral psychology. This is the guy that we believe kicked it all off. Anybody know who he is? I've made it very easy. I've put his name. Hippocrates. Now you all know who Hippocrates was by virtue of the people that tend to be knocking around in your premises called the doctors. And many of them, I don't think they're compelled to anymore. I think they used to be compelled to take the Hippocratic Oath. Incredible legacy from many hundreds of years ago, centuries ago. Incredible to think that what this guy decided was at play sort of stayed with us for so long in terms of our medical awareness, certainly from a Western point of view. He, as you'll probably know, decided, or did, at a time when it was pretty much heretical to do so. He cut people open. after they were dead, which was only polite, but he'd have a look at what was in there, and he'd draw it, and he'd measure it, and he'd compare it with the next body that came in. And he came up with this theory, the idea that there are 4 particular fluids within the body, the excess of which would give rise to a particular behavior during the life. The Greek word for fluid is humour, by the way. That's where we get it from. So when you put one of those adverts in, looking for a good sense of humour, you're checking on their bodily fluids, all right? I just want to let you know. So we've got 4 basic behavioural types, according to Hippocrates, and those would be based on the particular fluid you had. Now, what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to try and show you that behaviour. I shall act it out in a little vignette, 4 different vignettes, if you will, to show you the behaviour. Your job, very easy. Your job is to choose a word which would describe this sort of behaviour. And I'm going to do 4 different versions of behaviour, and I'd like you to tell me what you think, what you believe, how you feel about the behaviour I'm about to show you. I'm going to do 4 different versions of this. I'm going to start in the red zone. By the way, I've got to be a patient 4 times, and therefore you've got to be doctors. So I'll just pick on you. Just be subject to me. I'm going to start in red. Every single patient, by the way, has got the same issue, same problem, a pain in the arm. Okay, it's exactly the same, but presented in considerably different ways. Okay, here we go. Red star goes like this. Doctor, I noticed there was a sign outside the door saying no appointment necessary. Very useful for me, busy person, got a lot of things to do, a lot of people to catch up on. Hurt my arm quite badly, need you to sort it out. Notice you've got all the right equipment, you come very highly recommended. As I say, I've got 10 minutes. Are you able to do it within that time frame? Yes or no? Speak up.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, I'll see you in a second. Bye, get my clothes off. What was the behaviour you saw? Yeah? Hyperactive? Are you waiting to see the next one? What was that one?
Anxious.
Anxious. I got anxious. Anxious. What was that one? Harried. I got aggressive over here. To the point. Control. Impatient. Some of these things are good. Some of these things are reasonably neutral. Some of these things don't sound very nice. I heard aggressive. Nobody said assertive. What did they? I did. Yeah, I would say assertive as well. Isn't this person just getting things done, sorting things out, preferably now, moving things along, not wasting the doctor's valuable time? What's wrong with that? Is there anything wrong with that? Is there? Well, is there? Good Lord. Or is that person coming across as bullying, intolerant, dismissive, impatient, aggressive? You know, it's all there. But here's the thing. The interpretation across this room in itself was different. So when you're subject to that behaviour in its ameliorated form, because I'm obviously showing this in slight extremis for the purposes of contrast, but when you meet somebody who's got that sort of energy about them, do you consider it automatically as aggressive, or do you recognise it immediately from your self point of view as assertive? Getting things done, sort of thing. Fine, no problem. Where do you go with that? The likelihood is, if you're not like that, you won't like that. People like themselves. If you're not like that, you won't like that. People like themselves, initially. Then we get into this opposites attract thing, which I've got to cover. So this was the first style of behaviour, based on the fact that these people had too much yellow bile coursing through, well, you know where yellow bile, ducts, I suppose. Seen as tough-minded, sorting things out, getting things done. Nothing wrong with that, is there? Great, fantastic. Well, yellow was particularly different. Yellow looked a little bit like, let me, over here. Yellow looked a bit like this. Same problem, by the way. Yo, Dr. Hippo, my man. Give me 5. On the side. Down below. You're too slow. Good to see you, buddy. Listen, really knackered my arm, and it's your fault. Ever been to Hippo's parties? They are the business. I laughed so much a bit of wee came out. It was hilarious. I was cartwheeling across the lawn. I was having so much fun. Thanks so much for inviting me. When's the next one, dude? Anyway, hurt my arm quite badly. Need you to sort it out. You and me, go for a couple of sherbets. You, the doctor, you sort out my arm. What do you say, dude? Yeah. I was doing this in London a while ago, and it was for a women's institute. There was about 500 or 600 women in the audience, and there was a lady sitting about where you are, not happy with that sort of behaviour at all, just like... I thought son-in-law, but anyway. She's looking at me like this, and I walk back up to the front, and I say, so what do we see there? She said, bit of a dickhead, actually. Women. And you know what? I know what she means by that. I really do. I get it. But why? What was the word you would use, and if you can keep it reasonably clean, that would be great, you would use for that style of behavior, recognizing that I was obviously showing it in extremis for the purposes of contrast? What did you get from it? What did you get? Annoying, yes. Annoying, but they're all sort of annoying to the other person when they're certainly overplayed like I'm doing them. But why? Annoying in what area? Embarrassing. What, for who? Me? Or the other person? Yeah, it could be, because I'm all over touching and didn't stop. Who said over-friendly? Over-familiar. Okay, you said over-friendly. See, it's interesting when we have the... Friendly would be okay. But what about over-friendly? And at what point did friendly become over-friendly? Probably the wink, wasn't it? The word we use as a modifier to the behavior is the word over or overly. There's a big clue. The behavior itself, no problem, but the extreme version of it, potentially a huge problem. Especially if the person in front of you is not a surfing dude and wants to go partying and wants to hear about the fact that you were doing it. No. If they're not like that, if they're not like you, they're not going to like you doing that. Certainly not initially. These people came to be known as the sanguines, the blood, too much blood coursing through their veins, but came across initially certainly as outgoing, fun-loving. And the word we used earlier on was enthusiastic. Enthusiastic. Again, if we go back to the derivative of enthusiastic, anybody know what it means? Entheos. Touched by God. Touched by the divine. Nothing wrong with that then, is there? Unless you're a bit of a dickhead, I suppose. But the point around this is different to the first one. The third one, the green style, looked a bit like this. Hi, doctor. Do you mind if I come? Thanks ever so much. Good to see you. How are Ow. I'll tell you about that in a sec. Do you mind if I pull up a... Lovely. So how are you? Are you all right? The other half and the kids and everything? Fantastic. Talking of children, by the way, we'd really welcome you at the PTA meeting tomorrow. I know you're very busy. I know you doctors are very busy, or say you are, anyway. You're very busy, and I appreciate that. But if you can come along, that would be fantastic. I'd be really appreciative of that. Hurt my arm quite badly. I had this big, I don't know what I'm doing here. I had this big barbecue over the weekend. And all my family were there, and I was looking after them, and I was getting them drinks and cooking them stuff. And I noticed Portia, my wife, at the end of the garden, trying to get across the stream at the end of where you and I have fished many a time. We'll have to do that again at some point. That would be lovely. And I noticed she was having problems, so I went down and I lifted her and lifted her bodily across the stream. And Portia is an Amplicovesc woman at the best of times. And in doing so, strained my arm quite badly. Didn't tell her, didn't want to upset her, that diet thing you've got her on, I don't know. So I thought I'd pop in before work and have a quick word with you to have a look at my... That said, I did come through the waiting room, and I did see a lot of people in that waiting room a lot worse off than me. I'm going to let them come through first, if that's okay. And if you've got a bit of time at the end of the day, perhaps you could have a... All right. Anyway, thanks ever so much. Ow. I'll see you. Bye. It's just behaviour. But how many people were saying, get to the flipping point? Pick up on what was happening there. What was that? We're talking about lots of bits and pieces, but what were they talking about in general? If there's a theme, other people. Other people. So does that change your perception of the style of behaviour? Yes, it could be in extreme versions, the over version, a bit wishy-washy, a little bit wet, a little bit of a victim, a bit of a doormat, and kind and encouraging and nice and thoughtful. Where are you in that? And again, I did it in extremis just for the purposes of contrast. When you meet somebody like that, do you think of them as a bit pathetic, need to grow a pair, get on with it? Or do you think of them as nice, kind, gentle souls? Where are you in that? These people came to be known as the phlegmatics. Any idea what fluid we're talking about? It's not to be sneezed at, is it? Concerned with other people's opinions. Kind, nice, gentle folk. What I've tried to do, by the way, is illustrate the difference between the red and the green because they're in diametric opposition, as they are appearing on that slide. They're different behaviours in diametric opposition. So one was me, in, out, now, sort it. And the other one was us, others, time, you, actually. Complete contrast, complete opposition. They would fold their arms psychologically very, very differently. So if those two were different in terms of opposites, then these two would be opposites. Remember Mr. Yellow over here when I was doing the yellow? Well, we've got to try and do something different. Here we go. 4, 3, 2, 1. Appointment time. Doctor. I was digging in my garden yesterday afternoon at approximately 2:57 p.m. I was digging with my Spear & Jackson branded spade. I pressed down on blade of said spade at an angle to the parallel of 47 degrees and using a pressure in excess of 512 pounds per square inch. I know this because the ensuing pain shot through my metatarsal, up through my tibia, across my patella, transversed both my femur and my pelvic girdle. It then went up through my intercostal muscles, down through my scapula, through my humerus bone. The pain currently resides in my carpal tunnel. I know this because I've researched it very carefully and probably now know more about it than you ever will. However, it is my intention to speak to yourself and 2 other physicians that will then find the physician to best suit my ailment. I trust this is suitable to you. Goodbye. I think it was the same place, the Women's Institute. There was another lady, but was laughing a lot at that. It was a bit titter-worthy, I suppose. But she was laughing, almost fell off a chair with laughing. That's 50 quid. Come on. She almost fell off a chair laughing. Of course, as she was laughing, I was laughing as well. So I got back up to the front, having been very, very serious. Got back up to the front. She's laughing away. I'm giggling a bit. I'm saying, so what did we see there? She went, my husband. Came to be known as the melancholics, the serious in approach brigade. Which are you? Which are you? Because the psychological suggestions suggests that Jung, back in the 1800s, came up with the idea that we are starting introverted or extroverted. We can do all of it, by the way, but we might start in a position. I start sort of over here somewhere, to be honest, underneath about the O of extroversion. Very comfortable there. That's where I fold my arms. I can do this stuff. I tend not to, but I can do this stuff. You might start there and move anywhere. Where do you start on that? Where do you also start on the thinking-feeling spectrum? Thinking, which would be more into the result, the linear, logical methodology such that we achieve something, whether or not you like it. And over here would be the feeling, which would be, I don't know how it is for you, but I sort of get it here. Believe you do too. So let's give it a go, and as long as you're right with it, we'll see what happens. So the harmony and the relationship trump the result, and vice versa. Do we need both? Of course we do. Which is why it's so important to know where you prefer to start, so you can compensate, you can do the other stuff. The third psychological preference is, in this context, these words: sensation, what it is, what it's made of, reality, feet on the ground, or the intuitive style, which is the abstract, the possibilities, the 1 + 1 = 3, the story around it. Stick in the mud or away with the fairies. Where do you think I am? Yeah. Open your envelopes, guys. Open your envelopes and have a look. We have the extent to which we're extroverted or introverted, thinking or feeling, based on the words that you see on those cards. Put the cards in the order that you believe describe you. Well, I'll find some more. Are there any spare envelopes? No? Oh, there was a tranche I'd forgotten. I do apologise. Oh, there's a spare one. Spare one, fantastic. You need one? Just pass on. Anybody who hasn't got one, let them know behind you. Put them in the order that you believe describe you most, second, third, and then the least preferred. And don't worry, this is a decision today, not a life choice. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to hold it to you. See if you could do this in vocal isolation. Shut up. Normally I give about 1 minute and 10 seconds for people to choose. The speed with which you choose will be indicative of your personality type as well, a little bit. And again, don't worry too much. Don't worry too much about the choice you're making or not. But quite often, if I give 1 minute and 10 seconds for people to do this, the people who've got red on top will have finished 1 minute and 5 seconds ago. There's red there. There's no other colour. Those of you who put yellow on top are thinking, oh, can I keep these? Are these mine? I'd like to try them on my husband tonight. It'd be great. Try them on the dog. Try them on the kids. Might work. Who knows? They are your cards. You hang on to them, by the way. They keep them. Those of you who've got green on top will be the ones amongst anybody else who will be looking at the next person and going, oh, me too. Oh. It's funny, isn't it? And anybody who's got the blue card on top will be sitting there thinking, well, how the hell can I make a decision based on such a small amount of information? So on a good day, we bring this stuff to bear. These are our common denominators. This can split down to 8 to 16 to 48 to 72 distinct different types. Beyond that, it starts to become so individual anyway. We are obviously all 1 in 7.5 billion. Of course we are. We're wholly individual. But these are our common denominators, as suggested by Jung. Anybody start here with red? Oh, scary bunch. Look at them. Yeah. Right, I'll pick up the pace. I'll finish on time. We'll get a result, I promise you. Anybody start with yellow? Party! We'll have a drink later. It'll be great. Fantastic. Anybody start with green on top? Thanks so much for being here. Lovely. Anybody start with that wonderful blue on the top there? Thank you, blue. There are weighty tomes in support of this as an accurate instrument. This is not something I made up on the way here, I promise you. Neither does it relate to planets in the sky or anything. I promise. Some factual evidence around this sort of stuff. Listen, guys, if you own, those are your cards, hang on to them. But if you own the nice words and recognize yourself in that, then you also got to own the naughty words. Because is it not the case that these words, as we saw earlier on, overplayed, over-delivered, and especially to somebody in the opposite corner, will come across in wrong way. It will come across as a negative rather than the positive you intended. Even when you thought you were being all of that. Anybody want to change their colours? Do you know anybody like that? Could you not now see that the things that you don't like about them are probably based on some of their strengths as well? That's always a useful thing to do. If we have got opposites going on here, and plenty of us have, then consider that they're like cogs, where one goes up, one goes down. If somebody royally upsets you under whatever circumstances they are, the likelihood is, the possibility is, that they are the last colour card that you've got, the one that you put on the bottom. And yet, opposites can attract with a little bit of respect, awareness, understanding. They fit together like cogs. Yellow and blue do it, green and red do it. What one's good at, the other one ain't so good, and the other, and vice versa. You see, a culture, and think of the culture, you're individuals, remember? If there's an awful lot of red within the culture, we call that potentially an autocracy. This is what's happening, you're doing it. Wow. Is that comfortable? Is that useful? You know what? Sometimes in times of change, you need somebody to go, that's happening, especially if there's some danger around. You don't want somebody to debate whether or not we ought to be leaving because there's a fire in the room. Get out! What about yellow? Too much or a lot of yellow, adhocracy. Adhocracy, great, creative, fun place to work. But is anything really being put into practice in terms of the structure, the methodology? Is anything being captured of those ideas? Very easy to miss them. What about our friends in the green corner, the democracy? What is it? What about you? 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 Are we all agreeing? No? Well, let's not do it then. And they are, okay. They've all got their benefits. They've all got their challenges. Bureaucracy. Where we need a certain amount of bureaucracy, we need a system, we need a procedure. At what point does that become bureaucratic in its negative format? You see, I believe we need them all. Because if we start with the yellow, it doesn't matter where we start, by the way, start anywhere, go everywhere. But we start with the yellow and tap into that creativity and the ideas around some of the problems we've got. And then we say, okay, once we've had our ideas, and only once, then and only then, chuck it up to blue, we'll say, okay, let's look at this carefully. And by the way, you have all 4 colours in you. You can do this by yourself. You just need to up whatever the colour is that you need. My challenge is the blue one. So I have to, okay, great idea. It's a brilliant idea. Why is it a brilliant idea? Because I had it. Okay, right, well, I need to now critical analysis. Once you've got a critical analysis, chuck it down to the green in you or to somebody else who will say, what's the impact on other people? How's that going to look from a values point of view, from a cultural point of view? And once we've decided on which one we're going to go with, chuck it up to red, because they will be actions, outcomes, timescales. Now, you need to be doing that. You need to be doing this. You should have been doing that for a while ago. Don't know why you're still sitting there. If you've got an issue, have a tissue. I'll see you! And you need all 4. You need all 4. So the learning points at this point, the learning points are a mixture. We have you've got 4 color cards. You are not A red, A yellow, A green, or A blue. You are all 4, and in that order today. So you can't hide behind the top one, because you've got the second one kicking in. You've got the third one that can affect, and you've got the fourth one, which has a huge role to play, called your dark side. Strengths and challenges across all of them. The one that you've got on the bottom may be the person with whom you have the biggest problem, biggest challenge. The best culture you can adopt is the one that values the difference rather than thinks that everybody is sick, twisted, and wrong for being that different. And don't put anybody in a box, including yourself. Oh, yeah, well, I'm yellow, I wouldn't understand. No, you would. Perhaps that's where your development lies. I'm red, I don't care about all this fluffy stuff. Well, actually, there's a point at which it becomes important. Understand that whatever it is you're not is as important as who you are. What colour was she? Lady D. Lot of green going on there. What about him? You can do this. What about him? Welcome back. No, opposite. He's blue. Everything in its place, the place for everything. There was structure. I've shared the podium with this guy, and very blue, very careful, cautious, analytical. His son's yellow. What about her? Look at her, gobby cow. Yeah. It's yellow. What about him? Break it down. Is he more introverted? Extroverted. So we've got either a red or a yellow start. Is he more interested in achieving and things and process than he is in relationships and harmony? Yeah, he's sort of about here to me. I think he starts in red. If I knew nothing about this guy except that picture, I would say red through and through, because that's that action. Secondarily, I think he's probably yellow. Hug a hoodie, call me Dave, all that sort of stuff. I imagine. No. But he will have a perception of himself which may not be the same. Who knows? Turn to the person next to you. And if you want to play. And place your palms together. Choose an A and a B. I would like A to gently exert pressure. A, gently exert pressure on B. A, gently exert pressure. Stop! Okay, A's. Who are A's? Who are the A's? What happened when you pushed? She laughed. Did you do that? You see, no matter who I do this to, whenever I push someone, they push back. Learn that, because if we're going in psychologically pushing somebody just by being different, we can push their buttons by being different, psychologically push them, they're going to push back, and it's a downward spiral. If I went up to Sam and said, Sam, having pushed back, I approached it the wrong way. How about if you put your hand up for a second, and for the purposes of illustrating this point, would you mind if I moved your hand back 6 inches? Would that be okay? Yeah. Fantastic. So I've engaged, I've collaborated, I've worked out a plan, decided, I've got agreement, and thus I don't waste any time forcing the issue. Think about that. How often are we pushing, getting pushed back, tacit agreement, passive agreement, or even somebody who's actually turned up against you? How about just spending that, and it needn't be long, but it is an investment in time, sorting it out first, so that you can achieve the result with that buy-in. If you push, they're going to push back. Just if that cap fits where? It starts with a rapport. It goes on to relationship. Relationship is developed through trust, vulnerability, actually. That's where trust lives as well, such that a result is achieved. This works throughout every organization. How would we deal with this guy? He's a lot of red, remember, that push, that ability to get things done, sort things out. Well, we need to adopt this as his motto. We need to walk in to Mr. Sir Alan Lord, whatever his name is, Sugar, and we need to adopt this. When you know somebody, and perhaps some of the doctors in your life might be a little bit like this, then adopt this. The challenge you'll have is if you've got a lot of green energy and you want to go in and be nice. No, they don't want you to be nice, actually. They want you to be brief, be bright, be gone, get on with it. What about this lady, the green? A lot of green. How are we going to look after Mr. or Mrs. Green? Well, not like red. If we go into this person and be bright, be gone, they will consider you being a bit rude. So how about going in with a really clear, caring attitude? Show me you care. Show me Show me you care. And if you're not showing them care, then they're not really going to be bought in. Give them an opportunity to answer the question you're asking as well. This is what green does. You ask them a question, they go, then you carry on speaking. Did you see it, by the way? That's all you get. There you go. I'll do it in slow motion. Ready? Yeah. So in a half a second. They want to say something, let them. And just because there's the 3.5 nanosecond gap does not mean to say yellow and red can start speaking again. Show me you care. What about this lady? A lot of yellow. Involve me. I want to have a go. What's going on over there? It means I'm distractible. You'd be talking to Mr. or Mrs. Yellow. They'd be going, oh, yeah, great, great. Oh, look, shiny things. And you've gone. Involve them. Let them know what's going on. Team up with them. Blue. Blue. And these words, by the way, at the bottom of each of the cards. Give me the details. I also quite like the words prove it. Prove it. How do I know? Prove it. You see, to me, the real currency, whether it's a commercial or otherwise organization, it's not money, it's relationships. Who do you reckon said that? Him? Nah, wasn't it? Him? No. Him? No, it was me, actually. I call it relationshipology. Relationshipology is playing nicely together. Play nicely together, and we learned this when we were 3 in the sandpit. Have we forgotten? When Mummy and Daddy used to say, darlings, play nicely together. Don't upset people. Don't upset me. And if you do, say sorry. Apologize. Anybody recently said sorry for something? Yeah, for goodness sake. Without being a victim about it. Look, hey, my bad. Tell a grown-up if something's wrong. Tell somebody else if it's unacceptable. But don't tell tales. I never used to know the difference myself, but tell grown-up if something wrong, but don't tell tales. What about this one? Share. Share. Give stuff away as long as you get it back. Do your best. Try your hardest. Do your best. We'll talk about that in a second. Join in. Look after each other. If you translate those kiddies things into today's values, they don't look that different. And we sort of know this stuff. It's stuff that we've perhaps forgotten, or perhaps we just don't think is relevant anymore. And yet, the way we do something is so important. The attitude. What? Now, this person might be the most competent person in the world. You know who that is, don't you? It's actually a bit concerning because the next slide has got somebody you might even recognize. Whatever your competence, the attitude can completely ruin it. And the attitude can be based on all sorts of things, how you're feeling at the time, but reckon it, bring it to consciousness. Or are you like this? How can we help? And there's just a difference in the way that comes across is the difference between perceived competence or otherwise. What are you like? You see, you do have a choice in terms of your attitude. If you can change it, go change it. I've heard a lot about things that you can't change. If you can't change it, change the attitude towards it. You can change that bit. For me, if it's raining and I wanted a barbecue, I've noticed something scientifically. No matter how much I shout at clouds, it doesn't stop it raining. It's just one of those things. Change your attitude, have a carpet picnic instead. And watch your behavior. From an attitudinal point of view, what you're saying and how you're saying it. Are you trying? Try does belong in the English language, but if I were to ask you to try and pick that up, try and pick it up. Try and pick it up, Sam. No, you succeeded in picking it up. She picked it up. Can you put it back down again, Sam? Can you try and pick it up? You succeeded in picking it up. I'm asking you to try and pick it up. You succeeded in picking it up. She keeps succeeding in picking it up. You see, the word try, in this instance, in this context, is a little bit about the gap between deciding to and it working or not. If somebody says to me after I ask them, I say, would you come to my party on Friday? They say, oh yeah, we'll really try and be there. It's not going to happen. The word try is a problem when it's hidden behind. Why not, instead of saying try, say, I'll commit to that. I will commit to that. If I can't commit to it, then I shouldn't give you any reason to believe I'll try and do it. I'll say, here's how I can manage your expectations. I can do that, but it's not going to be now. Have those adult conversations. Don't try commit. No, I don't want to talk about them. Haven't got time to talk about them. Back in the day, this seafaring nation of ours, we used to build these boats and we used to call them these names. Why? Because we wanted people to get excited and get on the damn ship. We call it HMS Endeavour. Come and join my ship, Endeavour. It's called Endeavour. We're going to Endeavour. It's going to be brilliant. And people go, oh, I want to be Endeavour. Or we call it Enterprise. I'll be Kirk, Captain Kirk. Enterprise, fantastic. I shall join your ship called Enterprise because it sounds fascinating. It sounds wonderful. It sounds exciting and pretty macho, to be honest. And Valiant. I want to join the Valiant. So I'm going to join that ship. Of course, I'm going to give up all the rum and all that. I'll join your ship called Valiant. They used those names on that purpose. What they didn't do is call them HMS Possibly, HMS Might Do, HMS Try. The words you use are massively important. If you're seeking something called empowerment, A lot of us are. If we're seeking something called value, if we're seeking something called pride, if we're seeking something called understanding, then we should initially know that of ourselves. Empower where you can yourself to do this. Take the responsibility. Value yourself. Know that what you're doing is contributing to the outcomes. Be proud of that. And understand yourself and the impact you can have. So if you want all that, you should initially do that for yourself. And then do it to other people. It's one of those wonderful things that what you sort of sow, you'll sort of get back. It's a bit like the farmer that walks up to the ground and stamps on it and shouts, "Carrots!" And Mother Nature looks back and says, "Oh, you're new around here, aren't you? Now you've got to sow carrot seeds first." So it's got to start somewhere. You can't look at the grate and say, "Heat and light," because the grate will look back and say, "Fuel." It's got to start somewhere. It's got to start with you. So it's got to start with you before you can expect empowerment, being valued, another person's pride, or indeed their understanding. It's got to come from you, and it will be a reflection of what it is that you do. And if you can start with these 6 words, you will be doing 95% better than anybody else. Just 6 words. Talk to me, not about me. If you could really buy into that alone, your culture would be that much better, probably in the top 5% that I come across. I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. I can do more, I can do better. Who was working pretty much flat out 5-6 years ago? Oh, you weren't. You were just hanging about. You were, but you're doing more now. So how could you have been working flat out then? Just if remember at school you want to go to the toilet? Put your hand up. Put your hand up now as if you want to go to the toilet. Put your hand up. Okay, that's pretty good. And I want you to put up as high as you can go. Now a little bit more. Stop. Down. I asked you to put your hand up. You did. Thank you for that. I then asked you as high as you can go. And you all did that. And then I asked for a bit more. And you all went, "Oh, okay." This is a still from the Grand National, 2012. That was the difference. That was the difference. The first prize was £547,267 and, of course, the 50p. Second prize, £205,822 and 50p. The value of the difference you've just shown me, £341, a third of £1,000,000 in that context. That much difference makes that much difference. So we don't have to work twice as hard as anybody else. We don't have to do 3 times the work, 3 times. We just have to do that much different, that much more, perhaps. It's the fly in the middle deciding it looks easier that way. You've just shown me you've got that much difference. After 4.5 miles or whatever it is, jumping over those jumps, feeling that you're completely knackered, nothing else to give. No, you got it. You've just shown me you've got it. That's the bit that will make you more successful. That's the bit that makes the difference. In this case, a third of £1,000,000. What a blow. All you have to do was just be in the different stride and he would have won. The golden rule is this. Don't do unto others as you would be done unto. If I did unto others as I would be done unto, I would be arrested. It's true. My wife says, just don't touch anybody. It's a lot easier. Do unto others as they would be done unto. So we get to the crux of the matter, don't we? Which colour makes the best lover? Well, everybody's sort of like... Well, yellow, reckon they do. Because we're adventurous. We're going to have fun. We don't take it that seriously. It's just a bit of fun, isn't it? We'll swing from the chandeliers, try anything once, be great. Come on, Fido. Perhaps not the Fido thing, but... Well, or perhaps the Fido thing. Somebody. But when we're not actually doing it, we're down the pub boasting about the fact we've just been doing it. It's fab. It's fun. It's exciting. It's adventurous. We make the best lovers. Green says, excuse me, do you mind if I say something? I go, what? Is it not the case that green makes the best lovers? We say why? They say because we're considerate. We'll switch the lights on low and the music will be on as low and there will be petals strewn across the bathwater. And the massage oil will come out. And everything we do is for the other person. So surely by that definition, we make the best lovers. Yeah, it's quite a good point, actually. Then Blue pipes up and says, we've been doing some research. And if you apply a certain algorithm, it becomes very clear that we, in the blue corner, make the best lovers. We are exact, we are precise. We will do it once, we will do it a second, a third, and fourth time to ensure that what we're doing is replicable every single time. We know which knobs to twist and which buttons to press. And then red pipes up. It says something along the lines of, no. We, in the red corner, we make the best lovers. We say, why? Because we are commanding. We say, what do you mean you're commanding? Well, we'll say, I don't know, it'll be our decision. We'll say, look, I tell you what, down in the kitchen, 10:30 tonight, buy the washing machine. If you're not there, I'll starve without you. Thanks very much. Consider what you're going to do. What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to start doing? What are you going to continue to do? If you haven't got something you're going to do differently, why have we been here? Thanks for listening. Goodbye. Thank you.